Good afternoon and good evening for those joining from the Netherlands, from the UAE, and from other countries around the world. It is really a great honor and a great pleasure to join this second event in the UAE Netherlands week. We follow up after first a fantastic intervention by His Excellency Omar Gobash and His Excellency Ahmed Abu Taleb, the Mayor of Rotterdam. So we have to keep the level of that first panel. And I'm sure we will be able to make it because we have two fantastic panelists with us. On the one hand, Ambassador Hissa Al-Oteiba, a great friend, someone we really miss in Spain. We're very envious of the Dutch because they took her from us. So now she's the ambassador to the Netherlands. But before she was ambassador to Spain, to the Vatican, a very long diplomatic experience, also in her career, some multilateral diplomacy, bilateral diplomacy, and as evidence of her successes, she received recently from the King of Spain the Gran Cruz of the Mérito Civil, the highest decoration for a foreigner in Spain. And on the other hand, we have also an excellent panelist from the Netherlands, Ambassador Lodi Embrecht, who has a long career, probably one of the best experts in Europe on the UAE, where he has had several posts in diplomatic and consular assignments, but also has been ambassador to Malaysia and Korea, so another long diplomatic experience. Now, without further ado, let us start our conversation. And I think because this week is a fantastic experience on public diplomacy and cultural diplomacy, I suggest we start our conversation with culture. And this week, all the panelists are going to explore the resemblances between both countries, which go to that concept of culture which reflects how a society live and how a society feel about life experience. And so let me ask you, first of all, what are, from your perspective, the main resemblances between both countries and between both peoples?
Good morning, Excellencies. I'm really pleased to participate in this panel, which is part of the UAE Netherlands Week. I'd like to start saying that this year, UAE celebrated its 50th anniversary of the establishment of the nation. And in 2022, UAE and the Netherlands will be celebrating their 50th anniversary of friendly diplomatic relations. Your Excellency, you asked me about the similarity. The similarity between the two nations is their common strive towards peace, bilateral relations with each other and other nations. Also, it's a cross-cultural diplomacy and sharing a respect and commitment to international treaties and organizations. Both host international organizations, both host intergovernmental agencies, like you know, I can give an example, in the Emirates we have IRENA. In addition, both nations have vibrant, tolerant, multicultural society. UAE is host to more than 200 different nationalities, according to the most recent finding. Both countries also value human rights, and then both have issued laws to protect individuals against discrimination of any form. Dubai and Amsterdam are amongst the top 10 cities to receive the most tourists in comparison to their population size. Also, I can say both countries hold a deep respect and care for culture and heritage. Let me add more here also. Both care for environment with sustainability and renewable energy projects being at the forefront of their respective government strategies. And an essential part of their bilateral relations between the two countries. I find the people in both countries to be respectful of other culture, all the while being themselves proud of their own heritage and tradition. And they share common trait of being private people, in addition, valuing hard work and valuing discipline.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador Embrecht.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, very much for the very kind introduction, and good afternoon to my friends in the UAE and good morning to my friends in the Netherlands. You introduced the week as a cultural week, and that is partly true, but we're going to do a lot more than that. This week, we're going to talk about arts, design, entrepreneurship, female empowerment, startups, water, energy, food, Dutch participation at the Expo, and of course, the future of the relationship between the Netherlands and the UAE. And without repeating, what my friend Ambassador Aloteba said, I believe that the topics we touch on this week are of concern to both of our countries. We care about the topics, and we also think and hope that they will provide opportunities for future cooperation, for exchanges, etc., etc. Because, after all, the UAE and the Netherlands both are trade hubs. We are heavily connected with the global community. We have open societies. We have a very strong focus on innovation, a drive to do the best for the future. And again, as the ambassador said, we have very multicultural societies as well. And as far as the people of both countries are concerned, I think they share concerns about the future. They share perhaps dreams and share responsibilities. And what we try to do this week is create a platform for people to exchange ideas, to get a better understanding of each other, and perhaps create a future for cooperation as well. If we succeed this week in planting a small seed that in a few years' time or a few months' time becomes a beautiful flower, then I think we've been very successful.
Thank you very much. As you said, this week, several topics of vital interest for both countries will be discussed. One of them is water, energy, and food, and which is, I think, obviously, all these issues are among the biggest challenges for all countries around the world. But these are also topics where the Netherlands and the UAE are really leaders, and I would like to ask precisely about this leadership to Ambassador Embrecht, because food security has been an area of cooperation between the Netherlands and the UAE now for a while, and recently in 2020 you created some committees, but also I think Netherlands has a long tradition of leadership, of world leadership here. So I would like to ask you about both issues. On the one hand, about the leadership that the Netherlands have on food security, and also on the work you expect to achieve with these committees.
The committee you talk about is what we call the Joint Economic Committee, and that was supposed to be signed, that agreement was supposed to be signed during the Expo. But as you know, Expo got postponed with 1 year, so we'll sign it at the end of this year. And why do we do that? Why do we sign a Joint Economic Committee with the UAE? Very simple. If you look at the trade relations between the countries and the trade volume, and you realize that we are looking at 6.5 billion euro trade in 2019, which is really substantial, I think that justifies a more formal dialogue on economic cooperation between the two countries. And then we do not only want to talk as governments. What we want to do is create a structure where both governments can talk, as well as the private sector, as well as the research sector. And then we believe we create a perfect platform for the future. I'm very excited about things that can happen in that sense. Now, the Netherlands and agriculture, there is so much to tell there. Let me highlight a few things. First of all, after the Second World War, there were some similarities with the situation the UAE is in right now. We realized that food security was extremely important for my country. We needed to make steps in the right direction there. At the same time, when we looked at our agricultural sector, it was scattered all over the place, right? Small farms, not really efficient farms, etc., etc. So, to make a long story short, what the Dutch government at that time did, first of all, reform land use, create bigger farms, economy of scale, if you like. Second thing is, we created something that turned out to be a very interesting concept, where it's a kind of golden triangle, we call it. On the one hand, you have the private sector, farms, you have research and development, universities and schools, and you have the government. And together you work towards the future of agriculture. Better products, more sustainable products, better produce, and how to use this small country, the Netherlands, half of what the UAE is all about, in the best way possible. And this turned out to be a interesting formula, but because it gave us the second spot in terms of exporters of agricultural products and goods worldwide. Every year it's around 100 billion euros, which is really very substantial for a very small country as we are. But I have to say, it's no longer only about export, because we share responsibilities to make best use of water resources, land resources, and know-how. And that's why we are also at the Expo with a very compact story about what the future should be all about in this sector. I touched on a couple of things. There's so much more to tell, but we only have limited time.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Oteiba, the UAE has recently appointed a Minister for Food Security, which is a very strong political message internally and for the rest of the world. And Minister Mariam Al-Maheri is doing a great job. Could you tell us a bit more about why food security is so important at this stage for the UAE, and also about the overall strategy the country is proposing now?
Your Excellency, due to our climate and being a desert nation, food security is very important to the country in order to ensure that all citizens and residents have access to sufficient food at affordable prices at all times, including emergencies. So the appointment of Minister Her Excellency Mariam Al-Maheri as Minister of State for Food and Water Security, that was in 2017, demonstrate how this is a top priority to the United Arab Emirates. With regard to the food security, UAE government is focusing on three specific areas: comprehensive national plan, developing R&D, adopting technology. The ministry wants to work agribusiness trade facilitation throughout the whole country. It does this by enabling technology-based production and supply food, promoting international trade partnership, and enforcing policies and regulation to enhance nutritional intake and reduce food loss and waste. The main strategy is to work toward a constant innovation in the sector and to develop new methods of agriculture that are sustainable and amenable to our nature and climate, our natural climate and resources. In addition, cooperation with other countries, such as the Netherlands, is crucial for us in order to achieve these goals. For example, looking at the relationships between the Netherlands and the United Arab Emirates in this area, we can see that the Dutch companies are some of the biggest players in reclamation of agricultural land in the United Arab Emirates.
Okay, so Ambassador Embrecht, let me move to innovation, which is something very important in the Netherlands. You have produced innovation historically and in recent years, you are a leader also in innovation. And I wanted to ask about what drives innovation in your country. What makes a country becoming a world leader in innovation, and is it something that the Dutch people can export to other countries?
In short, you want to know our secrets, right?
Exactly.
Let me touch on a couple of angles here. If you look at innovation in the Netherlands, in history as well, then I think what played a very big role in the Netherlands is that we very firmly believe in an open society, in an open country. And that's not something that we did in the last 10, 20, 30 years, but for hundreds of years. Throughout history, we have welcomed people with other beliefs, other thoughts, other thinking, other backgrounds in the Netherlands. And I very strongly believe that this brought about value to our society. So diversity, it became a very popular term in recent years. We walked the talk already quite some time ago there on that one. And I think it added to the school of thought and innovation in the early stages of the Netherlands. What I also would like to say again is that government policy, I just explained you when we talked about agriculture and how we connect the corporate world, the education world, research and development, and government, and how that basically became a kind of golden concept, triangle concept. I think that also played a very important role in creating new products, creating sustainable products, connecting R&D with corporate activities, attracting even foreign companies in the Netherlands who wanted to be part of this concept. And at the same time, we, as a Dutch government, helping Dutch companies very proactively to go abroad as well with their know-how. That's also something I believe that helped us a lot. And last but not least, we have an education system in the Netherlands that does not only work as a sponge, where students have to learn, study, you squeeze it out at an exam and you move on. No. What we try to do in our education system is to make students work with the knowledge, work with the things they learn. How do you implement it? What brings about creativity? And we stimulate creative thinking. So a couple of these elements perhaps brought about a culture, an atmosphere in the Netherlands that seems to be very supportive to coming up with innovative ideas and products.
Ambassador Aloteivak, the UAE is also a leader in innovation in the Arab world. It has been ranked #1 in the Global Innovation Index. Could you tell us also a bit more about the country's experience and maybe give us some examples of innovation successes and plans for the future?
Innovation is a part of the UAE government's strategy, specifying mentioned in our Vision 2021 plan, which focuses on innovative Emirati building a competitive economy. This is very important for us in the UAE because it's a part of our sustainable investment plan and the UAE's human capital in order to derive the economy away from the oil sector and to diversify the economy, enhancing UAE's global competitiveness. I will give you some examples here. The development of the Mohammed bin Rashid Center for Government and Innovation, that was in 2014. Also, this led to many achievements. We have innovation diploma. It is a program which is conducted in partnership with the University of Cambridge in the UK. It aims to support the government entities to prepare generation of innovative CEOs. Also, we have government innovation labs. This lab consists of interactive sessions and workshops to use innovative methods so to find solutions for any challenging that faces government entities. Also, UAE has created a post called CEO of innovation in every government department. In addition to that, we have the Ministry of the Cabinet Affairs and Future was created, and they launched Future Foresight Strategy, which is aimed in building future models for health, for educational, for development, and environmental sectors. So it is very important for us. Our leadership is focusing on it.
Let me now ask, both of you have mentioned in your answers the importance of being an open economy and being a competitive economy. Let me ask you now about global innovation. We are in a moment of transition in the world stage, and I think countries like Netherlands and the UAE, which are innovation leaders, will have a strong position in this new era. What do you think are the roles that international trade and international investments can play in global innovation?
If I may answer that question as good as I can. I think yes, the UAE and the Netherlands, we have a position, and with that position also comes responsibility. I think comes responsibility, and you can approach that from different angles. But one of them is that the whole corporate social responsibility dynamic that we feel very strongly about, that we want to do something, we conduct business in a way that is sustainable, that add value to a global community as well as to other countries. That should be part and parcel of whatever we do and whatever we tell other companies, other countries to do as well. And there we find also the UAE a very strong partner in that context. So that's a very important one. And as I mentioned, it is for the Netherlands, it became a kind of circular approach. We do not only want to export, we just want to share experiences, knowledge, know-how to create the best that ultimately is the best for the world, and not only for bilateral trade or whatever it is. You see that in agriculture very strongly. You see it also in what we do at the Expo. We make the best use of water, food, and energy, and create a kind of opportunity for modern farming.
Foreign trade and investment can help to spread ideas across borders and help spread best practices. Many economists, as well as many findings published by the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, agree that trade and innovation go hand in hand and are mutually beneficial. Sharing experiences and expertise across borders allows the new technology to move freely, which in turn benefit more people, and this works in favor of those who acquired innovation and those who developed it. All in all, practices have shown that increased foreign trade correlates with increased innovation and is beneficial to those who engage in it. So it is, like you say, win-win situation. Both countries will be benefit from that. I can add here that Mubadala now is working with Asper, which is a Dutch company, to make a clean energy, to make district heating services and that use clean energy resources. And it is a very big project being done now in the Netherlands.
Ambassador Al-Taiba, let me continue the conversation with you, because now I would like to turn to a different topic, which I know is very dear for you, which is women empowerment. The UAE is also acknowledged as a leader, not only in the region, but in the world. It is ranked #1 in female access to secondary education. It is ranked #1 in female participation in parliaments, with more than 50% of the parliament members. it's ranked very high in wage equality. So I would like you personally have represented in your diplomatic career this empowerment. You have been decorated, as I said before, in Spain for being the first female ambassador in Madrid, and I mean, you had many successes, but this was also one of them. What is your personal experience here? How have you felt as a female ambassador representing an Arab country? Has it been an asset? Tell us a bit more about your experience and about how you see women empowerment evolving in the future in the UAE.
You know, in the Emirates, we are immensely proud to have always been a country that supported equal rights across women and men. Even before the formulation, even before the formation of the union, the Constitution of the United Arab Emirates ensured women's rights and enshrined the principle of equality between men and women in line with their respective nature, upholding their access to education, to jobs, social and health benefits, and holding government offices. Women also enjoy the same legal status, claim to titles, access to education, right to practice professions, and the right to inherit property as men. This is part of our culture and our heritage. This is something that stems also from our Islamic tradition. Therefore, a female ambassador, being a female ambassador amongst others, is always essential to show our strive in gender equality. And this to inspire other people and to do the same, especially considering that in most countries, women make such a small percentage of the government, and wage equality is still not universal. You know, most people, when they who have been to UAE or know about the UAE, are already aware of that. But if there are other people that they didn't still are unaware, when I talk to them, they have been extremely pleased and wish for the same in their own homeland if they don't have access to the same support. But I always feel proud, and I feel that my country is doing a lot to support women, to be ministers, to be in the parliament, to be ambassadors, to be diplomats, and I think many other countries are trying to do the same and taking us in the Emirates as a model.
Ambassador Embrecht, obviously, Netherlands is well known as a very equalitarian society, one of the most equalitarian societies in the world, actually. But I know that also women empowerment is a very important topic in your international cooperation and in your foreign policy. And let me ask you about this second aspect. How is the Netherlands promoting women empowerment around the world? Could you give us some best practices examples, please?
I believe Ambassador Taiba is also the first female ambassador representing the UAE in my country. So we're quite honored to have her in the Netherlands, I believe. Let me answer your question. First of all, we, the Netherlands, we believe in equal rights, equal opportunities. Full stop. There is no discussion possible. That's the bottom line of what we do. That's the bottom line of what we believe in. Now, this has not always been the case in the Netherlands. We've come from quite far, I believe. Do we always get it right? No. Have we reached the final station? Absolutely not. Are we still learning? Absolutely. But we try to create a society that supports women, but also men, to make choices that suit their individual desires, needs, and suit the society at the same way as well. Ambassador Oloteba mentioned it already about female ambassadors. Also in the Netherlands, more and more we see female ambassadors appointed worldwide, but we're not yet quite there. So the government recently introduced, for instance, a 30% rule, where big corporates, big organizations need to have 30% of their senior leadership made out of women. So that's an important signal that we are also moving in the right direction, but not yet quite there. Now, in terms of foreign policy, human rights policy internationally has the rights of women and girls as a cornerstone. We discuss it with every country in every dialogue, and we try to bring out forward best practices, ideas for cooperation together. We have a female human rights ambassador in the Netherlands, so we reach out on all different levels and all different fora with this on this topic. And that's also why we've decided to have 2 sessions this week in the Netherlands UAE week, touching on the topic of female empowerment. One youth session where young ambitious ladies talk about female empowerment in the UAE and the Netherlands. What is it all about? And also a session on female empowerment in the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But what is also important for me through these sessions is to create a better understanding in the Netherlands of what the UAE is doing in terms of providing a platform for women. Very often in the Netherlands or in Europe, in a larger context, people don't really have a quite good understanding of what the situation is really all about. So through these sessions, we try to connect people, we try to connect young women together, and perhaps, again, create the platform for future cooperation. And frankly, to be very honest with you, I think on some points, the Netherlands can learn something from the UAE too.
That's a very good point, Ambassador. Well, we are reaching the time limit, but there is something very important, I know, for both of you personally and for both of your countries, which is youth. And I know that in parallel to our panel and to other panels, every day there will be youth panels where youth issues will be discussed by young Emirati and young Dutch representatives. May I ask you why did you want to enhance these youth panels, and what do you expect to achieve with them?
Yeah, this is one part of the week that I'm extremely excited about. I very much believe invest in young people, you invest in the future. Unfortunately, you know, 10 years from now, my working life will end, but they have a whole career ahead of them. They are the future leaders, and the future leaders in art, in entrepreneurs, in business, in science, you name it, you name it, you name it. So that's why I think it is really important that we focus on young people as well. You bring them together, you make them talk, you make them study together, discuss things together, and you create friendships for life. You create understanding. You create something that will benefit them later on in life, right? And that's why I really believe that investing in young people is investing in the future. And we bring together this week people from the art world. People talk about studying in the Netherlands, studying in the UAE, what it's like to be a young entrepreneur in the UAE and in the Netherlands. Being a woman, being, you know, out there making a career, what is it like in both of these countries? But also, young people, they tend to look at the world differently than we do. So what do you expect us to do? What do you expect about the relationship between the UAE and the Netherlands? What do you think is really important for us, diplomats, governments, business leaders, or whatever we are, to focus on? And how can we perhaps do better? And where do opportunities exist for youth organizations in the UAE and the Netherlands to work together? You understand that I'm very excited about this topic, and I look forward to these discussions.
The youth are the leaders of the future, and it has always been United Arab mission to empower and prepare the youth for their roles and for their responsibilities. And to underpin this, in 2016, Her Excellency Shamma Al-Mazroui was named as the Minister of as the Minister of State for Youth, and she was just 23 years old. And also UAE government has created youth circles, youth hubs. In 2017, in the World Government Summit, which was in Dubai, they launched the Arab Youth Center. So, because it's very important for us to invest in the youth. So it's always important to have youth there with us.
Well, Excellencies, it has been really a fascinating conversation. I said at the beginning that I expected this roundtable to keep the very high level of the discussion between Minister Gobash and Mayor Abu Taleb, and I'm sure the people joining this session will agree that it's been the case. You are both excellent diplomats, and your views have been very interesting. You added a lot of value with your answers. Excellency Ambassador Aloteiba and Excellency Ambassador Embrechts, thank you very much. I'm sorry that we don't have more time because apart from culture, from innovation, trade, women empowerment, food security, there are many areas where your countries are leaders, and particularly as the director of the Emirates Diplomatic Academy, the newly renamed Anwar Gargash Diplomatic Academy. I'm sure for our students, for the future diplomats in both countries, there is a lot of food for thought in this conversation. And I very much look forward to having more cooperation with you and with your countries in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. If I can add just one sentence, I would like to add that the UAE Embassy in The Hague is working closely with the Dutch Embassy in Abu Dhabi to discover the new areas of collaboration between the two countries. And I am sure that the Dutch participation in Dubai Expo will be a remarkable one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Hello and welcome to the UAE Netherlands Week presented by the Office of Public and Cultural Diplomacy at the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation and the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to the United Arab Emirates. My name is Amna Raisi and I'm delighted to be the moderator of this new discussion part of the Youth Talk series in partnership with the Abu Dhabi Youth Hub. I'm also honored to be hosting such leading and distinguished Emirati women, Reem Al-Ateba and Hind Rashid. In our talk today, we're hosting Reem Al-Ateba and Hind Rashid to talk more about the experience in Amsterdam. I would like to hear more about you, who's Hind?
My name is Hind. I'm 19 years old, my second year university in Amsterdam. I'm studying psychology, politics, law, and economics, but I chose to focus my path in politics because of my interest in the subject. Also, it's my third year in Amsterdam and hopefully one more year to go, and I'll graduate.
I would like to also ask about Reem Al-Ateba, if you can give